What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ben Ballion, back with another episode of the Sports Pod. And today, I'm going to get into my tour of the WFAN studios. I'm going to talk a little Mets because their season might be over after this series versus the Diamondbacks. And I'm going to give you my MLB starting lineup for players 25 and under. I'll get into all of it on the other side of the intro. Hit it.
That ball is out of here! Out of here!
All right, before I get into the episode describing what happened today and telling my story, because I do have a crazy story about how long it took to get to the studio, I just want to give a couple shout outs and say thank you to Jessica Clarke, who approached my dad at Fanatics Fest, and she saw that I have like a relationship with Keith McPherson, who I interned for, and she basically said, I see your son is into this. I see he has a relationship. Like, would you guys want to come out to the studio? So of course my dad said yes. And the day I'm recording this was the day that we went, and it was awesome. The studio is so cool, and I'll get to that in a minute. Just thank you to Jessica Clarke. She was awesome. She was really nice, and she showed us around everywhere. It was cool. Another huge thank you to Pete Hoffman, who I talked to for probably like 5-10 minutes while he was producing my guy Keith McPherson's show. And he gave me some great nuggets, some great advice. And shout out Hoff. And that's just some other people I talked to. Obviously, my boy Keith, my other guy Pat Boyle, Pete Hoffman, I just mentioned, Tom Izzo, who does a lot of digital work, a lot of the social media, and WFAN social media has been growing immensely since over the past year or so. So he's been doing good job. Andrew Perloff, I talked to him on Perloff and Maggie. I think they're on the Infinity Sports Network, and um, one of like the directors, Dave. There, he was good. I talked to him for a while, and he was telling me basically about all the ins and outs and all the different things that he does, all and how he helps, and he does a lot for them. And same with Jessica, it seemed, with what she was telling me. But yeah, thank you to everyone, and let's just get straight into this episode because this is gonna be a lot of fun. All right, let me start it out with my story on how and on just commuting to the fan basically. So me and my dad were going. My dad was driving, and it was good. It was smooth all the way from my house until we got to like around the Holland Tunnel. So at the Holland Tunnel, right, there's 4 lanes. There's gas stations on your right, and then there's like buildings and whatever else is going on the left. So me and my dad were on the second lane closest to the gas stations, and we were held up there for like 15 minutes because there was some construction. There was construction or whatever. It's the city. There's always construction. So after about 15-20 minutes, my dad looks on his maps and he goes, "They just closed the tunnel down." So obviously I'm like, what are we gonna do? And we still had like an hour left. The tour was at 9:45, and we were at that point at probably like 8:30, 8:40. And so basically we rolled down the windows of our car, and then we got the guy in the next lane over to roll down his window, and we're like, the tunnel's closed. You mind going through that gas station and just peeling off that way? That way we could get through, right? But there's cones blocking off those, like the entry points to to the gas stations. So I hop out of the car, I move the cones, And then I get back in and we drive to 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 Newport, and where we get on the PATH train. But before we could get on the PATH train, the machine where you get your Metro cards or your train tickets froze up on my dad while he was trying to get them. So the lady comes over. Shout out to that lady, because if she didn't come over, we probably would have been late. And she helped my dad unfreeze the thing. And then we get on the PATH train. We get held up at dispatch for like a couple minutes. It wasn't that big of a deal, but we got held up. And then we make it to the World Trade Center, right? Now, the World Trade Center, the walk from the World Trade Center to the WFAN studios is about half an hour. By the time we got off the train and we got to the street, it was already like 9:20, almost 9:25. Me and my dad were basically sprinting down the road. We weren't running, but we were moving. We were walking so fast. We ended up getting to the studios at 9:42, and we stopped to get a box of pastries on the way. That just to give you some reference of how fast we were actually walking. I mean, we were just passing everybody on the way. It was craziness. And then just getting to the studio was an adventure in itself. But then once we got into the studios, it was awesome. They had it all decked out with the orange and blue with the Odyssey, and on the carpet it was like, it wasn't turf, but they make it look like turf, like a football field. And one thing I didn't realize, how many studios and networks broadcast out of that WFAN station, because it's an Odyssey hub. It's not just WFAN. The fan dominates most of it, but overall, it's just Odyssey. Like, you got 1010 wins there. Obviously, Infinity Sports Network I mentioned earlier. Um, I think WCBS 880 used to be there, but they're done now. Unfortunately, the ESPN took over for them, and there's just a ton of stuff there. Jessica Clarke was walking us around, and it was just like a maze. It kept going and going. I'm like, how big is this place? And yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I got to meet a bunch of people, made some contacts, and yeah, what else did we do? I took some pictures. I'll post them on my socials. Follow me on Instagram at @thesportspod_Ben and TikTok at @the.sports.pod. All right, now let's get into the Metros. Because right now, this week, these 3 games against the Diamondbacks will determine the series. If the Mets don't take 2 or 3, this season is done. If they lose 2 of 3, the season's done. But if they win 2 out of 3, or they sweep the Diamondbacks, the season is on. Because if you do that, if you take 2 out of 3, the Diamondbacks are going to be reeling a little bit. You're going to be within a game or 2 of them. And depending on what the Braves do, I don't think they have the easiest matchup in the world. But they are just winning at a crazy pace right now. We were talking about them, like, this isn't the Braves' year. They're gonna win like 88, 90 games this year. It's, I don't know. The Braves just kill the Mets. They own them. It doesn't matter if it's the standings. It doesn't matter if they're even playing against each other. The Braves are gonna own the Mets. They just we can't get ahead of them. They got the Twins right now, and then they got the Phillies. So hopefully they could get beaten a couple times, and the Mets could get a couple W's. And that would be the ideal situation. We do have Tyler McGill pitching a game in this series, which obviously isn't ideal. But tonight, the Mets should be good. I mean, they've got to win this game. Start this series off on the right foot after the off day yesterday and just that crushing defeat on Sunday. They got Shaw Manaea, who has been dominant over the last month and a half. And I think the Mets have to win. facing Brandon Fat, who I don't think is very good, and Francisco Lindor is playing at an MVP level right now. Yeah, Fat has a 4.08 ERA. He's 8-6, although you can't really look at the record for anything. But I mean, Lindor is playing at an MVP level right now. I think he should win MVP personally, but it's the writers who choose, and I'm not a writer yet, and they're gonna give it to Otani, I think, just because I don't know why a strictly DH has never won MVP in MLB history, and I think it should stay that way. I mean, they don't play defense, and Lindor's defense is arguably the best in the league. So you got to take that into consideration when you're when you're looking at that. I get Otani has stolen 40 bases and already hit 40 bombs, but Lindor's 25-25 already. He's the only shortstop that's done that so far, and I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. He seems like a playoff riser to me. Like he seems like he's ready. He needs that slow start, but after that, he's good to go. And he's a player. He's a gamer. He just won NL Player of the Week, and he's not just gonna stop. He's gonna continue. I mean, Jose Iglesias with that play, he won Play of the Week on that grounder up the middle where he was going to cover second on a steal attempt, and he fielded it diving towards first base and basically stepped on second base with his leg on the ground, which was pretty insane to me. So he needs to kind of get it going again, though. I get he's an old backup middle infielder, and we shouldn't be expecting too much out of him. But from what he did at the start of the year, that's what I'm going to expect. If he does something for 2 months or however long he was up, that's what I expect his season to be like. Maybe not hitting like 395, but like 370, 360. That's what he should be doing. And it's all right though, because McNeil's picking up his production a lot since the break. I think he's hitting around 315, which is good. I mean, the Mets just got a blast off tonight in Arizona. They gotta score runs. Scoring runs is gonna be the main thing because I trust Mania. I still trust Buto after he gave up the homer in his last appearance, and obviously I trust Edwin Diaz. He's been dominant besides that last game. I don't know what was happening that last game, but the Mets needed to win that one, and they didn't they didn't rise to the occasion. And what I'll say about the Mets, this is my last thing before I get to my starting nine under 25 years old, is that the Mets are going to stay in this pennant race and this wild card race. They're going to keep it interesting, but at the end, they're probably going to fall out of it. And that's just the Mets' way to do things. It's only the Mets can out-Mets the Mets. It's a Metsy way to end the season, and that's what I see happening. All right, let's get to my starting lineup under 25 years old. Now, this does include 25-year-olds, so it's 25 and under. Let's start at catcher, go around the infield, and then go back for the outfield. Starting at catcher, from your New York Mets, Francisco Alvarez. Did anyone think I was gonna put someone else? Because I don't think there's another option. I mean, even with his slump recently, the last couple months, his defense makes up for it. Like you see that pitchers pitch better with Alvarez behind the dish than with Torrens behind the dish, who's also a really good defender. But Alvarez is, I don't know, he has the aura, he has the mentality, he has the swag. He's a winner, I feel like. Like when I think of Alvarez, I think of the homer against the Orioles, the homer against the Diamondbacks last year. He just comes up clutch, and that's why he's my catcher. At first base. Now, this is a pretty weak position, I think. I didn't find too many good options here, but I went with Tristan Casas. Nothing to scoff at. From the Red Sox, he's 24 years old, and I think that I think that he's I don't know. I just thought he was the best option. I don't think he's anything special, but there weren't any options better than him. Moving on to second base, Andres Jimenez. I mean, Jimenez at 25 years old, he's almost aged out of this list. And let me know if you want me to make this like something I do every year. But he was a part of that Francisco Lindor trade. He's I think the Mets have won the trade first off, but he's produced for the Guardians. I think he's a contact hitter. And when the Mets played him, it seemed like he was bad because he was just trying to hit everything 753 feet. I mean, if you the swings he was taking were awful. He was falling out of the box. He was just swinging way too hard. But overall, I think he's the best second baseman, 25 and under. And for this list, I didn't put like Ellie or Gunnar Henderson in a position they don't normally play. I put a real second baseman. At third base, Mark Vientos, 24-year-old from the Mets. Now listen, I get people could say that this is too much of a Mets list, but Mark Vientos has been one of the one of the best third basemen in the league. Period. Stop. It's him, Jose Ramirez, and Rafael Devers that are at the top of the league at third base right now. Like if you look at all the hitting stats, OPS, home runs, RBIs, it's those three are at the top for all of them. And how could I not leave him off the off this list? I mean, his defense isn't good, which is a problem, but I think at some point in his career, he'll end up being a DH, which will help with that a lot. And well, because he doesn't have to play defense, obviously, but he's the best third baseman, 25 and under right now. End of story. At shortstop, Bobby Witt Jr. All right, people might have wanted Gunnar Henderson or Ellie De La Cruz on this list. But no, Bobby Witt Jr. was making an MVP run against Aaron Judge. Do I think it was ever that close besides all April and May? No. Judge has been out of this planet this year. He's an alien. He's ridiculous. But Bobby Witt is definitely the best shortstop that fits this list. He hits for power. He hits for contact. He has the speed. He plays defense. He's really a five-tool player. And that huge contract, and it was like $270 million they gave him, it's worth it because they have him for years to come. And he's proven that he deserves it so far this year. Left field from the San Francisco Giants, Elliot Ramos. Now, Ramos earlier this year was absolutely dominating. I think he's fallen off a little bit, but he's still playing really good baseball. He's a good hitter. He that's his best attribute. I mean, but he's just an all-around good player. I mean, yeah, Ramos this year. Give me a second here. Ramos this year is hitting 284 with a 341 OBP and 845 OPS, which is really good. And I don't think that's gonna slow down. I think he's having his breakout year, and he's gonna be more of a consistent player who's always good, as opposed to having his 1 year of really good play, and then he's gonna fall off for the rest of his career. At center fielder, a player who's been plagued with injuries this year, and really overall in his career, but he's back right now, and he's helping the Braves make a real comeback. Michael Harris Jr. really young at 23. The Braves did their method on him. They locked him up young, and now the Mets are going to have to deal with him dominating them for 8 or 9 years to come. And I want the Mets to take the Braves method with Alvarez and Mark Vientos. But Harris, he plays really good defense. He's a good bottom of the lineup bat as a lefty, and he's really just a solid player for the Braves. All right, right field. I don't think this is really a question. The generational Juan Soto. This is the second list that Juan's been on out of, I think, three. But yeah, Juan, generational talent. He's being compared to Ted Williams in some of these stats. He's ridiculous as well. I mentioned Aaron Judge before, and he's having the best year of his career, being being protected by Aaron Judge. Like, I don't think you can argue with me on this one. So yeah, Juan Soto's the best right fielder, 25 or under, without a doubt. And my starting pitcher, Spencer Strider. I mean, Strider for the Braves. He obviously was a part of the UCL epidemic earlier this year, but throughout his career, his young career, he's been really good. He's been dominant. He was in Cy Young conversations, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. I mean, he's got nasty stuff. He throws upper 90s, which all the pitchers do nowadays, but I think Spencer Strider's the best. And again, there weren't a ton of good options on this list. So yeah, that's my list. Let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. Let me know what you would have changed, who you would have put in. And that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you follow me on all my socials. They'll be linked down in the description below. Huge thank you to Jessica Clarke for the opportunity to tour WFAN today. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, and turn on post notifications. And keep it locked with the Sports Pod.